A TikTok bill that could potentially lead to it being banned in the United States is moving forward to the Senate. The wording of the bill, approved by the House, calls for TikTok to divest from its Chinese-owned parent company ByteDance within 6 months. In June 2020, India became the first country to ban TikTok. DD India's Caroline Malone sends a report from Washington.
Advocates of the TikTok bill say it poses a national security threat to the around 170 million users in the US, which is the biggest user base in the world. They say it has the potential for China to access data or to use malicious software on TikTok in the United States. Well, a bipartisan group of lawmakers decided to approve the TikTok bill by an overwhelming majority in the House, and that bill will now be considered by the upper level of Congress, by the Senate. But TikTok users have actually been calling their congressional representatives to complain, saying that it is a crucial part of their lives and, for many people, a part of their livelihoods. In fact, a TikTok-funded study suggests the app contributes billions of dollars in revenue for small businesses and particularly for people in the food and beverage industry. Previously in the US, the state of Montana tried to ban TikTok outright, and that actually failed. And there is a suggestion that this type of bill could be considered unconstitutional if it became law, especially because in the US there's the First Amendment rights, which allows for free speech. Some lawmakers want to see a wider digital privacy bill instead, which acts on all foreign-owned apps and also protects users on all social media platforms, including the likes of X and Facebook. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
Meanwhile, China has called the bill an act of bullying that will backfire. TikTok CEO has vowed not to stop legal fighting and advocating.
We will not stop fighting and advocating for you. We will continue to do all we can, including exercising our legal rights, to protect this amazing platform that we have built with you. We believe we can overcome this together.
A Georgia judge has dismissed some of the charges against former United States President Donald Trump and his allies in the Georgia election interference case. Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee noted that allegations by state prosecutors that Trump and his co-defendants tried to get Georgia officials to violate their oaths of office did not offer enough information to move forward with. The judge left 35 other criminal counts intact, including 10 against Trump. The central racketeering charge against Trump and his remaining 14 co-defendants remains in place. Trump and his co-defendants have pleaded not guilty to charges that they formed a criminal conspiracy to seek to overturn Trump's loss to Biden in Georgia in the 2020 elections. Haiti's capital was calm on Wednesday, 2 days after Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned. The US and UN meanwhile began to withdraw staff in a sign they fear peace might not hold. The US Southern Command has sent a team of Marines to ensure the protection of the US Embassy in the Caribbean country. DD's Latin American correspondent Mary Trini Mena has more details.
The United States has announced the deployment of a fleet of Marines to Haiti after the resignation of the country's prime minister. According to US officials, an anti-terrorism security team has been sent to the capital, Port-au-Prince. The U.S. Embassy remains open, although with limited operations. The capital is currently controlled by heavily armed civilians. The U.S. Department of State has warned U.S. citizens not to travel to Haiti. On Monday, Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry agreed to step down from his duties while a transitional council is going to be implemented. The council will exercise presidential power, and its mission is to appoint a new prime minister and a new electoral council. The goal is to hold elections later in 2024 to improve the political and social crisis in the Caribbean nation. However, experts have warned that the success of Haiti's transition will depend on whether the gangs currently in control can be part of the negotiations. Meanwhile, the Kenyan government, which had agreed with Haiti to send police forces, has decided to pause the deployment of security forces to the island. African officials said they are going to evaluate the agreement once a new Haitian government is in place. Mary Trini Mena in Caracas, reporting for DD India.
Well, updates now on Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia claimed to have successfully intercepted and shot down 58 Ukrainian drones on Wednesday. The Russian security service in Belgorod said its building was struck by a Ukrainian drone attack. Though no casualties were reported, the external facade of the building was damaged and windows were broken, while Ukraine said its air force had launched multiple attacks on Russian military personnel and equipment, including ammunition depots and other key targets. It added Ukrainian forces targeted Russian personnel, military equipment, air defense systems and other targets also. Meanwhile, Russia warned the war in Ukraine could spin out of control due to the ill-considered actions of one or two NATO countries on Wednesday.
Due to ill-considered actions of one or two EU or NATO countries, the Ukrainian crisis may easily spill beyond its geographic borders, acquire quite a different scale and spin out of control.
In more news, European Union countries agreed to provide 5 billion euros for military aid to Ukraine as part of a revamp of an EU-run assistance fund on Wednesday. Ambassadors from the EU's 27 member countries agreed to the overhaul of the European Peace Facility Fund at a meeting in Brussels. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said, "We will support Ukraine with whatever it takes to prevail." Meanwhile, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said this is yet another powerful and timely demonstration of European unity and determination in achieving our common victory. Lawmakers in the European Parliament voted in favor of the Artificial Intelligence Act 5 years after regulations were first proposed. The rules will cover high-impact general-purpose AI models and high-risk AI systems, which will have to comply with the specific transparency obligations and EU copyright laws. It restricts governments' use of real-time biometric surveillance in public spaces to cases of certain crimes, prevention of genuine threats such as terrorist attacks, and searches for people suspected of the most serious crimes. A total of 523 EU lawmakers voted in favor of the deal, while 46 were against and 49 abstained. EU countries are set to give their formal nod to the deal in May, with the legislation expected to enter into force early next year and apply in 2026, although some of the provisions will kick in earlier. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was questioned about the White House's history of digitally altering photos on Tuesday. She denied doing so and inquired if she was being asked the questions due to the UK's current situation, where the Princess of Wales apologized after she said she edited a Mother's Day photograph of her and her children.
Altered? Not that I know of. I would say no. Why would we digitally alter photos? Are you talking about, are you comparing us to what's going on in the UK?
While Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will be meeting U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken early next week to tackle cooperation and security matters. Marcos vowed to defend the Philippines' maritime claims after Chinese President Xi Jinping called on the armed forces to coordinate preparations for military conflicts at sea. Their meeting comes on the heels of heightened tensions between the Philippines and China over territorial disputes in the South China Sea. A 2016 ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague found that China's sweeping claims had no legal basis, but Beijing has rejected the ruling, claiming indisputable sovereignty over most of the South China Sea. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un guided a military demonstration involving tank units on Wednesday. Kim also expressed great satisfaction that a new type of main battle tank successfully demonstrated its striking power in its first display of performance. Kim also emphasized the need to organize intensive exercises simulating an actual war and training matches for enhancing combat capability to be able to carry out any combat mission promptly and accurately in any contingency. Kim was joined by senior officials, including Defense Minister Kang Sun-nam, at the event. And still to come on DD India News Hour. No breakthrough in Nigeria abduction crisis. Kidnappers demand 1 billion naira for the release of 286 students and staff abducted from a school in northern Nigeria last week. Nepalese PM Prachanda secures a vote of confidence for a third time, forges a new coalition government with KP Sharma Oily-led Communist Party of Nepal. Heavy rain slashed Bolivian capital La Paz, prompting authorities to declare a state of emergency.
Why have the big five powers of the United Nations Security Council seen no change in 8 decades? Who is stalling reform of the world body, and for how long can we wait? Are we truly alone in the universe, or are there aliens who keep playing hide and seek with us? Watch Connecting the Dots to get the full picture every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Swagat ahe to magnetic Maharashtra, the land of valor, dreams and wonders. A state that is a perfect blend of rich cultural heritage and modern cosmopolitan India. Its breathtaking beaches and luscious green Western Ghats are home to 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites that attract innumerable tourists. Maharashtra is a state of vibrant cultures knitted together into a beautiful tapestry. Its people uphold a brave heart and a compassionate soul, a glimpse of which can be seen in the heartwarming stories of the land. Maharashtra is a leader in terms of agriculture, industrial production, trade and transport. From world-famous Nagpur oranges to world-class Nashik wines, from scenic expressways to the majestic sea link, the state is ready to take global center stage. Maharashtra's capital city Mumbai is also the financial and commercial capital of India. With headquarters of major corporate and financial institutions, including India's main stock exchanges, the city is a key driver of the service sector in India. Mumbai, the city of dreams, is also an art and entertainment capital and home to the Indian film industry, one of the largest in the world with a global fan following. Playing host to G20 meetings, Maharashtra and the city of Mumbai are ready to offer our guests an enriching glimpse of India's diversity, inclusive tradition and cultural richness.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Israel will try to flood the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid from a variety of entry points as international pressure mounted to address the growing problem of hunger in the besieged enclave. Israeli military spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said they have placed no limits on the amount of aid that will allow into Gaza. He, however, blamed failures by the aid agencies for delays. Earlier on Wednesday, the military announced that 6 aid trucks with supplies from the World Food Organization had entered the northern part of the Gaza Strip through a crossing in the security fence known as the 96th Gate. More such convoys would follow, as well as deliveries from other entry points complemented by airdrops and seaborne aid cargoes. However, Israel's defense minister has said that they will ensure aid coming in by sea will benefit the Palestinian civilians in Gaza and not Hamas.
The humanitarian issue that will soon be on the agenda surrounding the expected arrivals of vessels is a central issue in order to allow supply to the civilians and not to Hamas. Any such act weakens Hamas, strengthens our grip and allows us to turn the ball on Hamas' head. We will continue to do so because it allows us operationally to complete our mission.
US Air Force has released a video it said showed an aid airdrop over Gaza on Wednesday. The Air Force has used C-17 Globemaster III and C-13OJ Super Hercules to airdrop the aid. More humanitarian aid was being airdropped by multiple countries into Gaza during the first couple of days of Ramadan, when Muslims around the world fast during the day. The German Air Force too started an operation to supply aid to people in Gaza on Wednesday. A first Bundeswehr German army aircraft took off from Havre, France to Jordan. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said the first airdrops of humanitarian aid over the Gaza Strip could take place by the end of the week. Germany has deployed a total of 2 aircraft for as many flights as necessary and possible. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that the Israeli government has a responsibility and obligation to ensure the job of humanitarian agencies working in Gaza.
The Israeli military, the Israeli government have a responsibility and an obligation to do everything possible to ensure that the humanitarians can do their jobs. And among other things, that means making sure that if there's a humanitarian facility that's clearly identified, it's not struck. It means making sure that if there's a supply mission, a convoy, trucks going to a particular place at a particular time, that the Israeli military does everything possible to ensure its secure passage.
Turkey and Iraq are due to hold talks in Baghdad on Thursday amid strained ties over security and energy issues. The talks also come as the government in Baghdad signals negotiations about the withdrawal of US-led coalition forces in Iraq are likely to continue past the US election in November. Washington and Baghdad began talks about pulling American troops out of Iraq after US forces came under a series of attacks in the country from Shiite Muslim armed groups, following Israel's military operation being launched in Gaza. And DD India's Ollie Barrett tells us more from Baghdad.
Turkey that these talks will focus on issues around security and defence and energy, cooperation on things like renewable energy. But you're right to say that ties have been strained between Turkey and Iraq in recent months. One of the reasons that ties have been strained is over Turkish military operations against PKK Kurdish militants in the north of Iraq. Iraq has seen some of those military operations as a violation of its sovereignty, but Turkey insists that those operations will and need to continue against PKK militants, which it sees as terrorists. The other reason that ties have been strained between the two countries is over a crucial issue for the Iraqi economy, which is oil, and there is a key oil pipeline that moves oil from Iraq into Turkey and beyond into the international market. Now, that particular pipeline has seen operations paused because of a row between the two countries, and that will clearly be a focus of discussions here in Baghdad as well. We know also that renewable energy is going to be on the agenda, but as I say, oil is absolutely critical for the Iraqi economy, which during a period of stability over the last year or so has started to fare quite well. We've seen, for example, increasing exports of oil to countries like India. Iraq and Russia have been locked in something of a battle to become and to be India's main crude oil supplier. So all of these issues are very important to the Iraqis, but clearly also to Turkey, some of the issues that are going to be discussed here in Baghdad, and that's why they are sending what they say is a very high-level delegation here indeed. The Foreign Minister of Turkey, the Defense Minister of Turkey, and one of Turkey's top intelligence chiefs as well coming here for these discussions. They don't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, but at the same time, they are neighbours. It is also the case that the government here in Baghdad, while it doesn't approve of the Turkish military operations that sometimes cross into Iraqi territory, is also not well disposed to the PKK Kurdish group in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. There is also a willingness to cooperate on things like renewable energy and to try and get that oil pipeline moving if possible, supplying oil through Iraq into Turkey via that key route. So there are absolutely areas on which the two sides can see eye to eye, despite all of those reasons that ties have been difficult at times.
Gunmen who kidnapped 286 students and staff from a school in northern Nigeria last week have demanded a total of 1 billion naira, which is equivalent to $620,000 for their release, a spokesman for the families of the hostages and a local councillor said. Northeast Nigeria was rocked by terror on March 7 as gunmen abducted dozens of pupils in the northern part of the country. A community leader who acts as a spokesman for the families of the hostages said he had received a call on his phone from the kidnappers on Tuesday. Idris Ibrahim, an elected official from the Kuriga Ward Municipal Council, confirmed the ransom demanded an amount. He added that the security forces were taking adequate measures to secure the release of students. The country's information minister Mohammed Idris told reporters on Wednesday that Tinubu's position on the kidnappings in Kuriga was that security forces should secure the hostages' release without any payment to the kidnappers. Voters in Senegal will cast their ballots on March 24 after weeks of turmoil due to President Macky Sall's attempt to postpone the presidential election. 4 days after the start of campaigning for presidential election, one of the main contenders, detained opposition politician Bassirou Diomaye Faye, remains in jail as his backers take his campaign to the road. Opposition leader Ousmane Sonko is also in detention. He was disqualified from the race over a defamation conviction that is not related to his imprisonment last July. Both Faye and Sonko were expected to be released after Parliament passed an amnesty bill on March 7 aimed at easing tensions, but it remains unclear if they will be released before election day. In Nepal, Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachand secured a vote of confidence for the third time. Prime Minister Dahal won 157 votes in favour, while 110 lawmakers stood against the vote of confidence. One of the lawmakers in the Nepali Federal Parliament abstained. A total of 268 votes were cast in Wednesday's vote of confidence tabled by Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal. There are 275 members in the House of Representatives of Nepal. The Prime Minister needed 138 votes to trust him. Due to discontent in governance, differences in power sharing and several other reasons, the alliance between Nepali Congress and CPN Maoist Centre broke and a new alliance was forged by Prachand with KP Sharma Oli-led CPN and other three parties, Rashtriya Swatantra Party, Janata Samajwadi Party and Unified Socialist. A Bangladeshi flagged cargo vessel MV Abdullah carrying coal and manned by 23 crew members has been hijacked by Somalian pirates in the Indian Ocean near Somalia coast. The ship was heading for Dubai for Mozambique's Maputo port when the pirates attacked. This is the second instance of Bangladeshi flagged ship hijacked by Somali pirates. MV Abdullah is owned by SR Shipping Lines, a sister company of Chattogram-based Kabir Steels and Re-Rolling Mill Group. Bangladesh Shipping Department officials said that they have already contacted various international organizations and embassies as well through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to aid in rescuing the ship and the sailors on board. An International Monetary Fund mission is in Pakistan for last review of a $3 billion standby arrangement. The 4-day review will begin on Thursday. Islamabad secured the last gasp rescue package last summer to avert a sovereign default. The last review, if successful, will immediately release a tranche of around $1.1 billion for the economically shattered country, while the remaining amount will be phased over the program's duration. There are an estimated 500,000 giant sequoias, the largest trees on earth in Britain. Introduced to British country estates as a 19th century status symbol, giant sequoias, also known as the giant redwoods, are thriving in Britain. These are growing at a rate nearly equivalent to those found in their native range in the US state of California, which is 80,000 in Sierra Nevada mountains. California's specimens are under threat from more frequent and intense wildfires and climate change-fueled droughts. Though a report by Britain's Academy of Sciences, the Royal Society showed that giant sequoias in Britain were generally doing well. The giant sequoias can live for more than 3,000 years and were originally introduced to Britain around 1800s, where they were planted in the grounds of grand estates, becoming a Victorian-era symbol of wealth due to their rarity. All right, let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Peruvian authorities destroyed more than 20 tons of illegal drugs in the country's first massive drug burn this year. The drugs were confiscated in several operations between September 2023 and January 2024 and included cocaine, marijuana and ecstasy among others. Peruvian Interior Minister Victor Torres said that most of the drugs had been seized in Piura, Ayacucho and Puno. Peruvian police officers raided dozens of properties around the country, arresting 18 people into illegal arms trafficking and its role in the murder of Ecuadorian presidential candidate last year. In the mega operation, some 700 officers raided houses and offices in 4 districts of the capital, Lima. Authorities said the operation targeted companies that allegedly imported weapons mainly from the US and Turkey. 20 armed people boarded a cargo ship off the coast of Somalia and took control of it. It is the latest ship to be targeted following a resurgence of attacks by Somali pirates and in recent months, although the maritime security firm did not specify that it was Somali pirates who boarded the ship. The incident happened about 600 nautical miles east of Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Britain's Queen Camilla attended the second day of the 4 Cheltenham Festival's Style Day. The Queen arrived at the festival wearing an all-green outfit at the racecourse in southwest England. This year, the iconic horse racing festival marks 100 years of the Gold Cup, which will be held on March 15. In Bolivia's capital, La Paz, heavy rains continued unabatedly, damaging nearby houses. The water volume of Choqueyapu River also reached a police station. Heavy rain in Bolivia capital prompted authorities to declare a state of emergency after overflowing rivers destroyed many houses over the weekend and 1 person died. Bolivian President Luis Arce pledged to send heavy machinery and troops to prevent further damage. Argentines grappled with intense rains aftermath with reconstruction works. The downpour tore down rooftops and prompted authorities to declare an orange alert and cancel flights. In the city of Campana, neighbors teamed up to remove the debris left from 2 roofs that collapsed due to hail and rain. The capital city metropolitan area downgraded the alert to yellow, warning of potential damages and disruption in daily life activities as rains persisted. The Olympic flame will stay within the Paris City Hall on the night of July 14 when France celebrates Bastille Day ahead of 2024 Summer Games. The flame will be carried across Paris on July 14-15. It will then travel through the wider Paris region and return to the capital for the opening ceremony on July 26. The flame will be lit on April 16 in ancient Olympia, birthplace of Games. The flame is set to arrive in France on May 8 in Marseille. And still to come on DD News Hour. Marking his first overseas visit after assuming office in January, Bhutanese Prime Minister Tshering Tobgay to begin a 5-day official visit to India. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address beneficiaries of PM Swanidhi scheme, which provides hand-holding support to street vendors in Delhi. Electric Mobility Promotion Scheme 2024 announced provide further impetus to the green mobility in India. The scheme to run from 1st of April until July.
Why have the big 5 powers of the United Nations Security Council seen no change in 8 decades? Who is stalling reform of the world body, and for how long can we wait? Are we truly alone in the universe, or are there aliens who keep playing hide and seek with us? Watch Connecting the Dots to get the full picture every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
You're watching DD in a News Hour. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj, and let's have a look at the headlines once again. US House of Representatives passes a landmark bill that gives TikTok's Chinese owner ByteDance 6 months to divest US assets or face a ban. China calls it an act of bullying that will backfire. Calm in Haitian capital extends into second day after Haitian PM Ariel Henry resigned. US and UN begin to withdraw staff in a sign they fear peace might not hold. Europe moves closer to adopting world's first artificial intelligence rules. EU lawmakers endorse political deal on AI rules. EU countries set to give their formal nod to the deal in May. India reiterated the urgent need for reforms in the United Nations Security Council. India's permanent ambassador at the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, says United Nations needs to evolve to avoid obsolescence and irrelevance. And Bhutanese Prime Minister Tshering Tobgay will arrive in New Delhi on a 5-day official visit to India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Also, this will be his first overseas visit after assuming office in January 2024. During the visit, the Prime Minister of Bhutan will call on India's President Draupadi Murmu and will also hold bilateral talks with the Prime Minister of India. India's External Affairs Minister and other Indian dignitaries will also call on Prime Minister of Bhutan. The visit of Bhutanese Prime Minister will provide an opportunity to the two sides to review the partnership progress. The Union Cabinet has approved agreements to strengthen bilateral relations between India and Bhutan. An MOU on general supply of petroleum, oil, lubricants, POL, and related products was signed between the two nations. An agreement was inked in the food safety. Both nations also approved an MOU on cooperation in the field of energy efficiency and energy conservation measures. Well, to give more details on this, DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh joins us from Delhi. Amritpal, a very good morning to you. Now, Bhutanese Prime Minister will arrive in New Delhi on a 5-day official visit to India. And this will be his first overseas visit after assuming office in January 2024. Amritpal, what can we expect given the fact that both the countries share a unique and time-tested bilateral relationship?
That's right. Bhutan is one of India's closest neighbors, and Tshering Tobgay is no stranger to India. He's been the Prime Minister of Bhutan earlier from 2013 to 2018 before he lost the confidence vote. But then he came back in January this year. He's a friend of India and is considered a close confidant of New Delhi. Remember when he had taken over in January this year, the Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra, the Indian Foreign Secretary, had made a 3-day visit to Thimphu and held wide-ranging talks with Tshering Tobgay's cabinet and his officials. And later, the Bhutanese Foreign Secretary had come to India. So clearly, the two sides are on the same page when it comes to taking cooperation to the next level. During this visit, he's accompanied by the Bhutanese Prime Minister is accompanied by a slew of his cabinet ministers, which include the Foreign and External Trade Minister, the Energy Minister, the Commerce and Industry Minister. So there are wide-ranging talks today when the delegation-level talks happen between Prime Minister led by Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Tobgay on a wide range of issues. MOUs you spoke about, the cabinet gave approval just before the visit, one on energy efficiency, the other on food safety. Apart from these two MOUs, they'll be discussing a wide areas of cooperation in energy, health, connectivity, boundary infrastructure, the Gelifo project, rail connectivity, etc. So we expect that to transpire over the next 5 days. And of course, he'll be looking at some B2B or business-to-business projects as well. As you know, he's not just traveling to Delhi, he's also traveling to Mumbai, Siddharth.
Indeed. Amritpal, an MOU on general supply of petroleum, oil, lubricants, POL, as we say, was signed between both countries, and an agreement was inked in the food safety as well. Any additional agreements or initiatives on the cards? If you could just update us and how these agreements, Amritpal, aims to enhance cooperation between the two nations.
Approval has been given for the energy efficiency, etc. These agreements, when we see when the two sides meet, we'll see them come out. But, they'll be talking about a wide range of issues. Infrastructure, developing infrastructure, their next 5-year plan. As you know, India is in the budget for 24-25 has put out some 2,000 crores foreign external aid. They are the biggest beneficiaries of India's external aid to any other country. So their next 5-year plan would be up for discussions. Infrastructure projects. There are about 800 small community projects going on. How that can be expanded. Then they vary in various sectors: IT, training, energy efficiency, rail linkages. There are 2 rail linkages that they're looking at. One in West Bengal, 18-kilometer stretch, and another connecting the Gelifu Smart City project, which when the Bhutanese king had come in December last year, the 2 sides had spoken about, and he had visited Guwahati as well. So connecting that with Assam for further sub-integration at the regional level. Of course, more people-to-people exchanges in the field of education, in the field of health. From India's point of view, the boundary talks, the China-Bhutanese boundary talks will be of great importance. Remember, they've had their 25th round of boundary talks. The then foreign minister had visited Beijing, and the 2 sides had agreed to what is called as a 3-step agreement to resolve the boundary talks soon. But that has security implications for us, for India, in the Doklam region. So India would be keen to know from the Bhutanese side that how their talks or what their approach with the Chinese is going to be like. Of course, Thimphu has reassured New Delhi that its security concerns will be taken into consideration, but India would be very concerned about that. Apart from that, of course, business-to-business agreements, training of their professionals to stop. The king had voiced that they are very concerned about the migration of young professionals happening out of their country. So all this will be up for discussions today and over the next 5 days. Siddharth?
Well, definitely. This means wide range of topics on which discussions, are expected between both the countries. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Amritpal Singh, for your analysis. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address beneficiaries of PM Swanidhi scheme on Thursday here in Delhi, guided by the vision of Prime Minister to provide economic support to the marginalized sections. PM Swanidhi provides hand-holding support to street vendors. It was launched on 1st of June 2020 amidst the global economic crisis caused by the pandemic. On the occasion, the Prime Minister will also distribute loans under the scheme to 0.1 million street vendors. Prime Minister will also lay the foundation stone of 2 additional corridors of Delhi Metro's Phase 4 during the program. These corridors will together be of more than 20-kilometer length and will help improve connectivity and further reduce traffic congestion. India has once again called for reforms in the UN Security Council on urgent basis, stressing on the role of UN Security Council plays in efforts towards resolution of conflicts and for sustaining peace. India slammed the United Nations for being frozen in time. India's permanent representative to UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said, United Nations need to evolve to avoid obsolescence and irrelevance. The Security Council, as the institutional architecture, primarily responds to maintain the internal security as well. She said,
important requirements is therefore to strengthen the capacity of this council to address the issues in front of it by making it representative of contemporary realities and by undertaking reform to make it more effective. For its part, for our part, India has indeed walked the talk, ensuring that the African Union became a full-fledged member of the G20 during our presidency last year. The United Nations Security Council simply needs to follow suit.
Kamboj said the objective of peace building should be to break silos and to promote post-conflict peace building and recovery. India has consistently contributed positively and substantially to peace building efforts, underpinned by our efforts to give voice to the countries in the global south.
Settlement of disputes is key for the maintenance of international peace and security and the promotion of the rule of law. Dialogue and diplomacy should be the preferred path to resolve differences in an atmosphere free from fear and coercion.
Women have long made an outsized contribution to peace, development and human rights, and India takes the lead. Ruchira Kamboj highlighted India's efforts to put women in key positions in peacekeeping endeavors at the United Nations, where the session on financing for gender equality took place. Currently, there are 108 Indian women peacekeepers deployed in UN peacekeeping missions worldwide. This includes military observers and staff officers, contingent officers and soldiers, as well as 3 Indian all-women female engagement teams deployed in peacekeeping missions in the Sudan, the DR Congo and the Golan Heights. Driven by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of women-led development, the G20 had adopted a full-fledged action plan on gender equality and empowerment of women during India's presidency last year. Kamboj said India will continue to remain steadfast in contributing to these efforts globally.
To acknowledge that the meaningful participation of women and youth in decision-making strengthens prevention efforts and deepens the effectiveness of peace building in post-conflict situations. Women police officers and peacekeepers play an indispensable role in furthering the women, peace and security agenda in post-conflict situations, and this does need to be further incentivized and further facilitated.
India is making a strategic push towards self-reliance in semiconductors by leveraging its design expertise and hopes of strengthening the global supply chain. Soon, domestic chip production won't be a distant dream. DD India's Jessica Taneja has more.
With the inauguration of domestic semiconductor projects, India has strengthened its manufacturing value chain. This domestic microchip production will not only leverage the nation's robust software base and design expertise, but also significantly bolster the global supply chain. India has close to 50,000 plus engineers designing practically every complex chip in the world. This will become India's first commercial semiconductor fab or chip making factory.
चिप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सिर्फ एक इंडस्ट्री मात्र नहीं है, ये विकास का वो द्वार खोलती है जो असीम संभावनाओं से भरा हुआ है। इस सेक्टर से न सिर्फ भारत में रोजगार के नए अवसर बनने वाले हैं, बल्कि टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट्स के क्षेत्र में भी बड़ी प्रगति होने वाली है।
In order to reduce dependence on imports, significant infrastructure investments are being pumped in to build a complete domestic value chain for semiconductors. Factor this. In December 2021, the government announced a $10 billion package to incentivize manufacturing semiconductors in India. Last year in June, American semiconductor toolmaker Applied Materials invested $400 million to build engineering center in Bengaluru. US chipmaker Micron received 50% fiscal support from government to build a semiconductor facility. And now investments of more than $11.5 billion for semiconductor design, manufacturing and technology development are being poured in. With demand for semiconductors in India expected to reach $100 billion by next year, it's become a strategic industry of national importance. As the global semiconductor market size is projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in the next 5 years, India is positioning itself accurately to attract global semiconductor companies with a mix of policies, government incentives, and investment in research and development. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
The Indian Ministry of Defence has signed 2 contracts with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited for the acquisition of 34 advanced light helicopters. The deal was sealed for procuring 25 advanced light helicopters utility for the Indian Army and 9 advanced light helicopters for maritime role for the Indian Coast Guard under the Buy Indian Indigenously Designed, Developed and Manufactured category. The Indian Army version advanced light helicopters are designed to carry out search and rescue, troop transportation, internal cargo and casualty evacuation operations. And let's take a look at other stories making news. Indian Army's Aviation Corps raising its first squadron of Apache attack helicopters in Jodhpur on March 15. The first choppers of the unit are expected to arrive in India on May this year from the United States. Indian Army has signed a contract for acquiring 6 Apache helicopters from the US. 1 person died and 6 injured after a car hit several people on Wednesday late evening in Delhi. The injured are under treatment in the hospital. The car driver is also injured and is undergoing treatment. The police have registered a case and the investigation is underway. To accelerate the adoption of electronic vehicles in India, Heavy Industries Ministry has announced the Electric Mobility Promotion Scheme 2024. The scheme will run from 1st of April until July. Only the electric 2-wheelers and electric 3-wheelers are eligible for the benefits under the scheme. The move will provide further impetus to the green mobility in India. The 12th edition of India-Italy Military Cooperation Group meeting concludes in New Delhi. On Wednesday, the meeting marked a pivotal step in strengthening defence cooperation between both countries. During the meeting, the discussions were centred on new initiatives to bolster military exchanges between India and Italy and building upon strategic partnership established in 2023. And still to come on DD News Hour. We tell you ahead how the EU-US markets fare on cues from producer price data and inflation trend ahead of next week's Federal Reserve meeting. Atletico oust Inter on penalties to reach Champions League quarters, while Dortmund beat Eindhoven 2-0 to reach quarters. And remembering the greatest and most influential scientists of all time, Albert Einstein, on his birth anniversary.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
You're watching DD News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. The US stock market indices S&P 500 and NASDAQ edged lower on Wednesday as investors took profits in chipmaker stocks. The S&P lost 0.19% to close at 5,165.31 and NASDAQ Composite falls 0.54% to 16,177.77, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed with a margin gain of 0.1%. The investors have braced for producer price data and further cues on the inflation trend ahead of next week's Federal Reserve meeting. European shares touched new record highs on Wednesday. The pan-European stocks 600 rallied 0.2%. The index earlier in the session hit an all-time high for the 5th time in the past 6 sessions. The German DAX also touched an all-time high of 18,000 points on Wednesday after the European Central Bank indicated a potential shift in their monetary policy in the months to come. And you're watching DD News Hour. Time now for sport. 8 teams are all set to battle it out in 2023-24 Champions League quarterfinals. On Wednesday, Atletico Madrid has reached the quarterfinals, ousting Inter Milan on penalties. It finished 2-2 on aggregate at the end of extra time after Inter had thrown away a 2-goal advantage. Atletico goalkeeper Jan Oblak was then the hero, saving penalties from Alexis Sanchez and Davy Klaassen before Inter's Lautaro Martinez blasted his spot kick over the Spanish side in advanced in thrilling style. Another team which has reached the quarterfinals is Borussia Dortmund, which secured a 2-0 win over PSV Eindhoven on Wednesday. Jadon Sancho and Marco Reus scored for Dortmund. This is for the first time that Dortmund has reached the Champions League last 8 plays in 3 years. The rest 6 teams are reigning holders: Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, FC Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Barcelona and Real Madrid. Well, March 14 marks the birth anniversary of great physicist and Nobel laureate Albert Einstein. Einstein was born in 1876 and by 1905 he had worked out some of the most path-breaking research in the field of physics that changed the way the world viewed the subject. His equations helped us to understand the universe, space, time, gravity and to accurately count atoms. They literally illuminate our lives and are applied to fields across science.
Genius and its impact on almost everything we do. We take a lot for granted because the applications of science have advanced to such an extent that we are experiencing a different quality of life. But one man was largely responsible for that: Albert Einstein. In 1905, a miracle year, Einstein published groundbreaking papers on the photoelectric effect, the Brownian motion, and the special theory of relativity. 10 years later, he added the general theory of relativity that incorporated gravitation.
GPS system relies heavily on Einstein's general relativity. The photoelectric effect is something which paved way for detecting light. So in order to detect light, earlier we started with photomultiplier tubes, and that relied exactly on photoelectric effect. And then it developed into CCDs and the cameras which we have today. Counting the atoms and the colloids, this is something which started the field of chemistry. We were able to count the number of atoms. Now we know how the gases behave, and this Brownian motion is not just applicable in physics or chemistry, it's also applicable in finance.
The photoelectric effect is the emission of electrons from a material caused by light. Special relativity shows us that the speed of light is independent of the motion of the observer.
And light has no mass.
Black holes are regions of space where gravitational pull is so strong that not even light can escape.
The photon, which would have started from the sun, starts 8 minutes earlier, comes to the earth after 8 minutes, and exactly 8 minutes have passed. For the photon, there is no time. When it started, when it was detected, there is no time for the photon. So it was absorbed and emitted at the same time. So that connected space and time together.
100 years after the general theory of relativity, science was able to confirm gravitational waves. At a macro level, Einstein's general relativity tells us about the curvature of space-time in 4 dimensions that cause gravity.
Einstein predicted the existence of gravitational waves in 1915, and subsequently, because these are what are ripples of space and time, if you have 2 black holes which are going around each other, they would create a ripple in space and time. Subsequently, when the technology is developed over time, after 100 years exactly in 2015, we detected gravitational waves.
His collaborations with other scientists was through correspondence. Satyendranath Bose's research around photons brought to light subatomic particles, later called bosons. Einstein engaged with India's political class on subjects like satyagraha, colonialism and industrialization. He even called the fellow Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore rabbi. Bureau Report, DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.